You are about to receive messages that may be harmful to your mental state. Your sense of reality will be questioned. Your view on things will be altered. You are now part of the meta. The meta controls everything. The meta determines what will and will not happen. You are watching.
So much time to prepare that we are live now. In fact,
yes, we are.
So, sorry about us being a little bit late here, guys. That's my fault. I ran my mouth so much on the far side that I decided to go get some bibimbap here and feed myself before we get started. So here we are. We have a pretty big week here. We've got Villy and K. Keller joining us. We're going to be talking about some of the fun things that Legacy Coalition has been up to, slap fights with FRT, any sort of movements there. But I think Boat has the order of the day. Also, wow, subs here.
So for our top story, we have charts and graphs and things to talk about. Hilmar sent a great tweet that was posted on Reddit, and we're going to talk about that and why I like it. Then we're also going to ask Keepstar ? And Villy might find this funny when we get to that point. We're also going to talk about the first dread to be killed in wormhole space that belongs to the Dark Blood group called the Chemosh. And then we're also going to discuss about all the stuff going down in the Fraternity War.
Are we going to discuss your hair, because the people are more interested in your hair than
I have this local barbershop. So I live near Cincinnati. Oh, it happened again. So this anonymous guy,
shit.
Yesterday, this anonymous guy donated 50 subs to FatBTV. Today, 20 subs to FatBTV.
Well, that's not FatBTV. That's Imperial News.
Yeah, Imperial News. Sorry. Well, they're both the same to me.
And I still can't get one, so I never get to talk during
Thank you, anonymous gifter. That's 20 subs. Beautiful. What a wonderful day.
Crazy.
Thank you.
I feel like Matani's a little bit envious. People are talking about Boat's hair, not his, like normal.
People don't talk about my hair that much, so you know.
So I've been going to this barbershop for like 6 months. It's great. It's amazing. And this time, the barber I usually have is really cool, and he knows all the settings and everything. But this barber I'd never seen before, who apparently is the owner, goes, how do you want your hair done? I gave him a picture of literally how they've been doing my hair for the last 6 months. And he goes, oh, okay, well, we'll do this. I'm like, okay, cool. Sounds fine. I don't know what the fuck numbers are for that. And he goes, I'm guessing you want it down to the, on the back of the skin. I'm like, yeah. Then he shows me a mirror afterward, and this is my hair. And I'm like, he did a great job on the beard.
Can you take your headphones off briefly and show everybody? Just sort of like lean in.
I mean, he did wonders on the lining of the beard. Like, he did a great job on the shave part. But the actual head, as soon as he said skin, down to the skin, I was kind of a little suspect. But it's all right.
I don't know, dude. It's kind of got like a Hellboy vibe. I don't know.
Yeah, look, the haircut was beautifully done. It's just a little short. But what's really great is school starts in 2 weeks, so it'll grow out a little bit, and I'm not worried about it.
No, there's nothing wrong with a high and tight.
Right.
Not that I'm biased.
Shot that hair off. I mean, yeah, he did a great job. He pulled out the straight razor, got it all lined up. It was great. But anyway, moving on. We got things to talk about. And I'm going to press a fancy button because I like fancy buttons. Okay, first I'm going to give a shout out to all of our wonderful subscribers. Before the show even started, as we were doing the pre-rolls, we had a whole bunch. So I'm going to call them out. Zalman for 30 months, thank you. Big Red Bear for 5 months, thank you. Roderick for 5 months. Dragon Zero... Oh, that's red. Never mind. I got a new thing. 12 months from Slacker. Indy says 6 months. He says Blap Blap Toot Toot. Chronocious, I think that's how you say your name. 27 months. Canoceanus. I'm bad with names. And then, of course, our anonymous gifter for another 20 subs, which is damn awesome. I like that.
And Somni just cheered for 1,000. Yeah, so if people want to throw money at the street,
we'll take your money. Yep.
I really have never done the whole like, hey, give us money, like Scotch fund kind of thing, because I don't need it. But if people want to start like throwing money at the meta show, DBRB gets it, and I'll start taking any of the extra and spending it on scotch or something other like that. But it's turning into a thing. Like, I really appreciate the support for the channel. It's cool that people are throwing money at the stream. And it's funny because the Meta Show is like the flagship show of the channel, and I like to thank subscribers, but I never really kind of say, hey, give us money. But
yeah,
if people want to, I'll start spending it on. I'll just buy a bunch of O-Band 14 with it.
Yeah, even on the boat show, I'm horrible at saying, hey, throw us money. But okay, so
if you give us money, I'll turn it into scotch for me and drink it.
Nice.
There you go.
There you go. Speaking of scotch, I got a great bottle of Glenlivet down here, but I don't drink it because it's, I don't know, I don't like the taste. But we'll move on. I like vodka. I'm a vodka person. But anyway, moving on. Here we go. Hilmar sends a tweet. I linked it in chat here. He says, the more I talk to players about the Blackout, more it comes out that the Blackout of Zkill and Dotland have more of an impact on local chat. Leads me to think that some kind of information warfare is needed, enabling players to locally disrupt the ESI for a greater fog of war effect. And before anyone else says their piece, I'm going to say right now, I love this. I love it. And one thing that I love about this is the potential. Holy crap, another 20 subs just got donated. Thank you, sir. That's 40 from the anonymous gifter. Woo!
And a 444 tip from Yikes. Okay, well, if people just want to throw money at the
screen. You're throwing money at the screen. I can complain. This is amazing.
I'll have to buy a lot of scotch. Thank you. That's not. I'll take it. Fuck it.
The single biggest complaint I have about Zkill board and the way it's structured and designed, because it's only one of one. It's not like all of Eve have their own individual kill boards. It's all been consolidated to Zkill. Is he gathers APIs and ESIs and all this stuff. So you know if a guy lost his drones in the back-ass corner of Tenal to rats quicker than you know about the guy you just killed personally, because it automatically gets posted to Zkill. And I think that kind of information is too much, especially in a Blackout era, right? Like, if you're supposed to have this fog of war and not be able to see what the hell's going on in the corner of a galaxy unless you fly there, that's a big deal. And I think it's great if Hilmar tries to black that out. I don't know about Dotland, though. I like Dotland. It's useful. It helps. But the Zkill thing, I can see that. No? Go ahead, please.
Like, it's pretty obvious, like when they did the Blackout thing, we were all like, okay, you blacked out Null. Woo! Like, you know, we all, like, adapted and survived pretty quickly, but we're all like, yeah, that's kind of annoying to lose, like, Zkill and the rest, though. So he's like, well, shit, I guess I'll, you know, and now the response is, well, I didn't get them with the Blackout. I'm going to get them with the Zkill board.
Holy shit. I don't mean to interrupt you. We just got 100 subs thrown at the channel by Sanasami. That's... Holy shit. Check and see if you got a new sub, Billy. Did you actually get one this time? Because
no,
that is amazing.
I still can't get one. I will never get to talk during the...
That's 140 subs so far today alone.
If we are these, is the anonymous person competing with Sans? Like, is this? Am I going to die of liver cirrhosis? Okay, so first of all, a couple different things. I think it's really cool when people do gift subs, because it's not technically giving money directly to the channel, because people can then not resub if they feel like it or whatever, but it sort of gets everybody involved with the community and more involved with Imperium News. So, like, gifting subs is like a really cool way of doing that, in addition to just throwing money at the channel, which I'll just spend on scotch and liver cirrhosis, and Boat's going to spend it on whatever.
Yes,
but
yes,
I think because I am super communitarian about everything involving our little weird internet society, the idea of people gifting subs to each other makes my heart happier, I guess.
It's so wonderful.
Because in the case of the feels, more so than just directly.
So many goons love the subs because that gives them the chance to talk in the sub-only 15 minutes. Cool Kids Only
mode. Yeah, when we go to
baby.
Cool Kids Only mode, yeah.
Yes.
That's awesome. So,
that's 140 more people to talk.
I own a top hat, so, like, I'm good, but spreading love to everybody in the viewership is awesome, and the excess I'll spend on scotch. Wow, I've never seen this happen before, organizationally speaking.
140 is the most in one little bit. But go ahead, Billy. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. That was a big deal. All right. So, go ahead.
Well, as I said, I think the issue is that, like, they did the Blackout, and then Null was just like, okay, you blacked us out. And, like, there was no real whining or complaining about it. People were just like, sure, you blacked us out. Whatever will we do? And it was just business as usual for the most part, right? But we all were like, but losing Zkill was kind of annoying. Now they're like, well, fuck, if that's what we got to do to get those no powers, let's fucking get Zkill then. And
Yeah.
it's like, to me, that's just more responsive, listening to Reddit kind of stuff that won't gain you what you think it will gain you.
K Killer, what do you think about Hilmar's thing?
I mean, even Capri Sun posted in the thread saying how the people who mostly use .lan and zkill to find kills are the hunters. And we've actually seen this in Delve, is that the hunters have suffered a lot from the blackout. So what they've done before is if they see something like drifting off of a Fortizar or sitting on a Fortizar, and they don't see any names they recognize in local, they'll go for it. But now they can't do that. So what we've done is we've just cloaked off of people sitting on Fortizars. They drop, we counter drop. Like, it's actually hurt hunters a hell of a lot more than it's hurt us. It's hurt newbies. I'm not going to argue that. People who VNI rat, worm rat, it's a lot more difficult to make ISK to get to a carrier, but we're already at that point with the carriers and super carriers that it's just kind of doesn't really matter. We've had Marshy camping Delve with a person in every system for probably a year now. Like, people already know how to rat and mine with that.
Yeah.
I a couple of points here. Also, Boat, could you remove the umbrellas because the gimmick is past? I just forgot about them. I'm like, oh yeah, we got these umbrellas over here. I think that I don't agree with the specific implementation that is being proposed, but I sort of agree with the goal, if that makes any sense. Like I've always been against, in any form, ESI showing you when a SOV timer is. Like the fact that ever since FuzzySOV was implemented for years now, CCP made the terrible decision to publish for all to see when SOV timers are happening, completely removes recon gameplay, right? Like there are a lot of good Fog of War things that Eve had back in the day before FuzzySOV. And I'm a fan of adding more Fog of War. I think that like adding like a kill delay to the ESI is not really the way to do it. I think that the Blackout would be much better if we then added new things to it, right? Like I've been a big advocate of having like recon structures and having sensor nets that can be disabled. Like, back in the day you could disable station services and things like that. What if you had that for like sensor networks on a hub or a Citadel that's designed for like being an observatory? And then there's this whole gameplay element of like taking down a region's intel network before you invade and attack it. And I think that could be really cool. That's why I like the whole recon structures idea. But I think that this whole, like, should CCP take stuff off of .line? Yeah, you should not have an ESI-related public endpoint for structures you do not own, right? Like, if I have SOV, I should get a notice through ESI that my SOV is under attack. But other people who do not have my SOV should not know about that unless they have a scout there observing.
Or a spy, right?
Yeah, exactly. Spies, recon, that kind of shit.
I would agree with that, but you got to remember, there's no way CCP is going to be able to put that together, right? Like where one person gets access to this specific part of the ESI and the other doesn't. So it's all or nothing for the most part, I would assume.
Well, yeah, but here's the thing that I have an issue with that though, is it. Hey, Billy, you just got a sub, by the way, so high five.
Yes!
Thanks, Sally Sullivan.
Thanks, Sally.
Someone literally just threw you one.
That's not Billy, though.
Billy, no, not my actual Twitch account.
Here's the thing. For years, we've had access to Eve mails that would come in saying, look, your SOV's under attack. Hey, your POS is under attack. Hey, your Citadel's under attack. That part of the ESI is alliance-based or court-based or individual-based. So yeah, you can separate that out, but here's where it gets funky. I understand they want to cause some chaos and disrupt things, but I don't think the ESI should be a forced thing. For example, like I said with the Z-kill, it almost feels like if your entire alliance throws in an ESI, like some alliances do, you as an individual pilot are now forced to have your kill miles public. That should be an opt-in, opt-out thing. If you don't want all of your ESI data to appear on Zkill, you should be able to just press a button on Eve's website and prevent it, right? So I think that's where the him looking into it is a good thing. I don't know if he's going to mess it all up, but
one of the things that's sort of concerning to me is the fact that so many of these pronouncements are coming from the CEO by Twitter, and rule by Twitter is not a good way to rule. Like, and the reason for that is that it confuses people. Right, they don't know what to expect. If the goal is confusion, If the idea is to try to gin up excitement for the era of chaos, then it makes sense. But the question is, what is going to happen to the player base when the skill point bonus stuff goes away? Like, we still don't really have good data about the Blackout or any of these things. And if Hilmar is tweeting and saying, we're going to flip this table over, maybe we're going to do this, maybe we're going to do that, the problem is that when you add a whole bunch of uncertainty into any society or economy or what have you, people clench their ass cheeks and go defense, right? And we've already started to see that. And if enough people do that, then things stagnate, because this is the regulatory risk issue, fundamentally speaking. Like, if you don't know what's going to happen, then you have to plan for the worst case scenario, which means that things sort of tend towards stagnation. So, like, Hilmar has a development team. He's the CEO of the fucking company. Like, they have a release cycle that they have used to do things. They have feedback mechanisms. They have a CSM. They made their little focus groups because Fozzie was, I assume, butt blasted about people saying that FozzieSoft sucked, so they made the focus group so they didn't have to listen to the CSM telling them that FozzieSoft sucked. There are all these other avenues to make real substantial changes to the game, and one of the things that concerns me about this is Hilmar is tweeting all these things about what they could do, when anybody who knows anything about CCP's function as an organization is aware that the CCP devs are on vacation for like another 6 weeks. Like, they're gone. So it's a really weird situation when you have the CEO of the company who could be telling his developers through the normal release cycle, hey guys, what do you think about this? To be like playing to the crowd on like Twitter and Reddit and podcasts and stuff, when there aren't any developers there. Like, maybe there's a handful, I guess, but normally speaking, CCP goes dark through like late July and August. And so what the fuck, basically?
So we have some ways to look at this, and that's thanks to the compiling of Zkill. Career, for those who don't know, is one of the alliance leaders of XIX, likes his charts and graphs, and he likes to frequent the show and give us charts and graphs. And last night, he gave me a beautiful chart and graph, and this thing is amazing. So this is a compiling of all known Eve kill data from January 2008 to today, in a nice healthy chart, or in this case graph, line graph here, that even has little bullet points of where the spikes are. So if you go through this graph, I'm going to give you a little bit of footnotes that I took from this. Okay, as a whole, EVE Online kill mills have been on a steady decline. This is all of EVE, wormholes, high sec, low sec, whatever, since 2017. So they're starting to come off a peak and start to slowly drop. They have been since then, okay? But in terms of cost, both on the individual ship and the total cost of all of EVE has been going up constantly, and even more so in the last few years, since 2016. I'll explain why that's doing that in a minute. In 0-0, kill mills have been on a rapid increase in both the cost of the lost ship and the amount of ships lost since 2016. Here's why that's significant. Goons moved to Delve in 2016. You start to see a proliferation of capitals. Capitals cost more. You're seeing more caps killed, people doing roaming ops in cap ships, stuff like that. 0-0 has the highest IS lost and ships killed since 2016. It is now showing that 0-0 is the most active region in the game. That's including wormholes, low sec, and high sec. So for all of this talk that's been going on recently at all, Reddit and all these talking points that, 0-0 is stagnant, it's been the most active space for content and generation of kill mills in an era where kill mills are declining as a whole. Like, the number of things getting blown up is declining, yet 0-0 is going up, up, up. So that's an interesting bit of graph you could take from this. Also, Sutonia took some information, and I don't know how accurate his is, to talk about what's been going on with the Blackout, to point out that the Blackout during the month of July, that there is more ships being killed in July in 0-0 than was last year and the year before. So it's an interesting look at the data, because, again, you have CCP saying, oh, the most people are active, we're seeing amazingly high amounts of stuff, all these people are doing things, but the graphs and the charts and the ESI data available isn't showing that, at least in the whole of the game.
I mean, let's consider for the moment that
Yep.
maybe, for the sake of argument, there's lots of people arguing over data, this, that, the other thing. Worst case scenario, let's say that Hilmar is full of shit and that it is not actually the most vibrant thing that we've ever had. If it works, like if they manage to convince a whole bunch of people that EVE is currently going through a golden age, and for all we know, maybe we are, and that would be fantastic. That's great news, right? Like the best thing that can happen for this game. Like if it turns out that everybody who was against the Blackout, the data shows that the game is actually much better than it was before, then that's really all that matters. Like a healthy EVE is critical. So like I hope that as we come through this, it turns out that, maybe things aren't actually all that great. Maybe we're in like a wag the dog kind of scenario. But if Hilmar and the gaming media manage to convince everybody that EVE is going through a renaissance and it has a potential for being a positive, self-fulfilling prophecy, which would be good for us, even if initially speaking it was a deception. I don't know.
Mr. K Color, tell us, what do you think?
I mean, if you're gonna talk about positive things and then throw it to me, I don't think they're gonna end up as positive after that. I think that the amount of ships getting killed in Null-sec is higher, but I think they're just really shitty ships. They're not big things. They're not enjoyable things. They're drones. We saw like a 500% increase in the amount of excavators that died this month. Like that they can point to that and say, look at how much more is dying in Null-sec, but all that takes is for people to go, okay, we're going to use mining drone drones, and then that entire metric just disappears. Like it's not that part is not healthy for the game, I think.
Yeah, we basically, the fundamental challenge is that, like, right now, as these changes have been implemented, we're not going to, like, people are arguing over which data sets we should be looking at, which data is good data, is that data skewed by warfare over there, is it, can this or that be explained by one thing or the other? Ultimately speaking, I think the only really metric that matters is the PCU. It's the one that we have the longest data set for, and the current PCU data is skewed by the fact that they're running a login promotion. So, we will ultimately know whether Blackout was a success or not in like 6 months when we're able to compare, 6 months of data from here compared to 6 months of data in the prior years, and then be able to do a direct comparison. But until then,
But as K Color points out, it's going to be interesting as people adapt, and maybe even Billy can comment on the way Tess is doing this, because you're going to see the value of the losses plummet. No one's using VNIs anymore. I think Gobbins did a thing this week where he asked his whole alliance, hey, I know you guys aren't using VNIs. What are you using? Are you using them? Are you even ratting right now? If you are ratting, what is it you're flying? How much does it cost? Because you can see that. You can see people going, well, if it's blacked out and I can make almost as much ISK in something that costs 20 million ISK, why would I spend 150 million ISK? Or a billion ISK? Or 10 billion ISK? So you're starting to see people look for the cheaper options. Same thing with excavators. Even though excavator prices are plummeting, people are just saying, fuck it, I'll just carry 1,000 T2 drones. Yeah, I'm not going to make as much money, but I was AFK before with my excavators, and now I can be even more AFK with the T2 drones. So
it's about risk versus reward, right? So nobody's going to use excavators when there is no way to protect your excavators, right? So if I go mining and I have a 50% chance losing my excavators because there's a bomber nearby, or 3 bombers, then I'm just not going to use excavators. And if there's no way for me to tell if there's a bombers nearby, then I have no option but to use, mining drones versus excavators. So, like when that risk reward balance skews that way, there's no solution but to not play that game. Thus, you see people using mining drone 2s because if they're going to be hyperactive, you still can't save them, and you can use a Hulk, which reduces your risk in that way. And the big thing of Rorquals, scalability, and the fact that you can do it mostly AFK, right? Like I used to mine with 6 Rorks, and I'd get a lot of housework done. That was what I loved to do. It was great because I could, do my laundry and do my dishes, and I'd spend a couple hours doing housework, and I walk by my computer every 3 or 4 minutes to make sure that rats weren't killing my excavators, and that was it. But on the same regard, with the Vexor Navy issue, you have a situation where people used to use Vexor Navy issues because you could shrug off losing them in 2 hours. But there's no real alternative that can successfully do anomalies to the same degree at that level of cost. the thing that Test is pushing for right now is Dominixes, which is what most alliances are doing as well, because drones also are generally the most accepted way to do anomalies, because nobody wants to sit in front of their computer and press missile buttons over and over and over again for 5,000 times.
Right.
I think we did Myrmidons for like the super newbies, because I figure if you could fly Dominix, we didn't really consider the. What are the advantages? I mean, just straight up curiosity. Why did you guys go for Dominix and not for Really?
He's probably doing chores while mining again. But I mean, even if we want to talk about risk reverse reward, you have to also consider how much fun it is. Like ratting an Eve, grinding an Eve, is probably the worst aspect I have ever played in any type of MMO. Like, I would rather grind mobs in World of Warcraft for hours a day than try to do sites in Eve.
Well, it's true. I mean, it's more fun. Yeah, it's the actual core gameplay of a game like World of Warcraft. That gameplay, the inner loop of hit a boar with your orc sword. Like Blizzard actually managed to make, at least initially, it gets really boring after a while, but at least initially, the core gameplay is fun. You feel like you're a fantasy orc and you're hitting a boar with a sword, and then you're getting, I don't know, a boar gut that you handed for a stupid quest. That core PvE gameplay is inherently more entertaining. It does get very old very rapidly, but it's at least at its core far more fun than the core PvE gameplay of EVE Online when it comes to mission mining or ratting or anything. Like mining is at least chill because you can watch Netflix or porn or whatever in another window.
That's the thing that I've always liked about a lot of those games, PvE, and why I would do them, like Path of Exile, WoW, or any of those games, is that you felt the progression as you went. I'm playing a game Warframe now, and you're starting to see that progression where you work your way to a certain point and you may have to grind a bit because you're not there yet. And then you go to the next point and then you have to grind there for a bit. You keep going up a ladder. In EVE, there is no real ladder. It's doing the same thing. It's just how much faster can you do it? So you do the same thing for 12 years. It's just you work your way up from a frigate to a cruiser to a super to a Titan.
No, I would definitely say that EVE has its ladder. The problem is that most players in Null-sec start off basically at the top or second from the top rung. So once you get there, there's no real ladder left, right? And
there's no more climbing.
Exciting.
Okay. I completed my rank 5 of this level that took me a month to train, and I get 5 more ore per cycle. Yes!
Yeah, because Billy, now that you're back, actually, I asked you a question. You had to go AFK briefly, but I was curious as to why you guys went with Dominixes instead of Mermaid.
Sorry, my headset died for 5 seconds there. I had to plug it back in. Just, I don't know. We had a push to go to Dominixes before even the VNI nerfs had happened. You can fit a side on one of the Dominixes, and they're moderately capable of surviving the sites, and that allows you to, like, in theory, bring in a carrier to cover yourself if you're in trouble or something like that. They're just a lot more, I don't want to say user-friendly, but they're just a good overall ship. They're strong. They do the same.
I think we went for just raw cheapness and disposability, where people like these Myrmidons until they can get jumped up into a Rorqual or a carrier or something. I don't know.
A lot of people hate Rorquals and carriers doing PvE, but here's the reason everyone does it. Look at the excavators. The excavators have about as much survivability as your average mining sub-capital ship. 3 bombs and all your excavators are gone. 3 or 4 bombs and your procurer is gone. So those 3 or 4 bombers aren't going to kill a Rorqual in seconds, right? Those 3 or 4 bombers aren't going to blow up a Rorqual. So that guy in his Rorqual is going to get help from friends and actually survive in the long term. Even 50 or 60 bombers, he's probably going to survive if people are paying attention and trying to help him. You're not going to survive that in a sub-capital. So you're starting to see people get into Rorquals, even bare bone Rorquals. I've seen Rorquals with some fits that make me go, wow, he can't even use this and this. Why is he doing it? And then his reply, because it won't die. Somebody's going to come save me. If I get in trouble, I'll get help. But my Hulk would have been dead already.
A Sino is my tank.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things about this that was interesting during the Drifter stuff, and then the discussions that I saw from people who don't understand Null-sec, which seems to be most of the people who don't live in Null-sec, is that there was this assumption that people in Null-sec want to be left alone so they can crab. And people in Null-sec want to be left alone to crab, not because they like crabbing, but they want to crab as efficiently as possible so they can go back to getting in warships. Like, there might be some people out there that genuinely enjoy PvE in various forms, but in general, the purpose of economy in Null-sec is to create hulls that then go to war and create, reimbursement funds for the alliances to produce more hulls. So it's not like everybody out there in Delve is going like, man, I can't wait to just go mine and rat and do PI and do whatever else all day, every day. It's just what you do to be able to afford the fun stuff in Null-sec, which is war, conquest, murder, metagaming, the good shit.
Yeah, I've got one for you, and this came up when I got pinged by one of our CSM representatives on Mecha Gold. He asked a series of tweets and put my name in it about how I feel about something, and it has to do with this push to like appease Reddit and small gang groups. And this is how I view EVE if they go that route, right? This is the problem. You look at the different various parts of space, and this is how I view it if you look at games as a whole. High-sec is your single-player gameplay, right? You go to high-sec to do things like play, Devil May Cry or, some single-player game, right? You maybe you'll have a few friends you talk to while playing that single-player game like Call of Duty. You'll have like 5 guys you talk to or whatever, but it's still single-player. Like, you're not really doing it for the end game stuff. Then you go to low-sec, and low-sec is the guys that play the same, 10 friends that are in a little clan that play Call of Duty together every day, all day, or play another type of game like that where they're always in the same game together and they always have that same friendship and they'll talk on Facebook together, and that's that little group. Then you go to 0-0, and it's about building the relationships further, almost like a corporation. Like, you have this giant amount of people, even a 100-man group, small group, that constantly talks on comms. I mean, I see hundreds, 200, 300, 400 people in the same mumble channels day in and day out, right? So it's just a huge version of that small little friend group. And then you have wormhole space, which is people who have been to that huge mega corporation now go off to fund their own little piece of the pie. They have all the experience and all the knowledge and all the skills that comes with being in a mega corporation, and then they transit into a much more difficult place to do it. The problem is a lot of these groups that are these small 10-gang elite groups nowadays are looking at these mega corporations and going, we can't blow that up like we used to. We had better skills back then. We had better money back then. Now we can't fight. Now we need to fix it. We need to change the game to hurt the mega corporations that got the skills, either through skill injectors or over time, who got the ISK because they worked together to make the ISK to get the Titans and the ships. And it causes problems because you're trying to get back to an old EVE. The same people on Reddit that are complaining now that 10-man gangs, 100-man gangs need to do something are the same people that thought tracking Titans were okay. That 10 Titans, because they're worth trillions of ISK, or hundreds of billions, should be able to fight 100 Drakes.
Well, the unfortunate reality of the situation is that the meta we live in now is entirely built because of small gangs. Many people don't remember, because they never played through this era, when small gangs used to roam rampant through 0-0, and what they would do is they would go into your space and they would just farm the hell out of whoever they would find, and they would be nanofit and they would be all but uncatchable. Yeah. And it came to the situation where the only response the Null Empires had to that situation was to form gangs that could not be farmed and could respond in kind to these gangs, and you had the situation where the goal became make it unfun for anyone to come to our space, because if they come, there's nothing we can really do about it, right? So it became I don't know how to properly describe the relationship, but the goal was to disincentivize anybody from coming because they were just roaming for free kills, and there was very little you can do about it, and there still is very little you can do about a properly fit nano gang. So when you have one, you're not like, oh, I'm gonna manage to kill them all. It's like, I managed to kill one of them, and give them no kills is the goal, so they leave us.
Right. Look at Waffles. Sorry.
I'm glad that Billy brought this up because this is what I wanted to rant about. Is I saw a Reddit post saying that he fits his ships as nano so he can take all the fights, and that's why he does it. And it's like, no, that's not why you're nano fit. You're nano fit so that you can take the fights that you're gonna win and run away from the fights that you're gonna lose. So why am I gonna spend 50 people's time to form up a fleet to take on your 20-man nano fleet if you're just gonna run away when I can drop a single Titan and make you fuck off? Like, why are we going to do that? Why are we going to just feed to you so that you can have content? We're not going to enjoy it. Or I can drop a single Titan. You can complain about it. And then the next day you see people saying, oh, the Kikimuras are, they're too powerful. Oh, and people want them to be, in line with the other cruisers. And they go, well, the Kikimura's 200 million ISK, cruisers are 10 million ISK. It should be more powerful. Like, do you not understand the irony in that entire statement right there? Like, because my ship costs more, it should be able to do everything. Like, that's what a Titan that you're complaining about basically does.
Right. That's the thing. Look at Waffles. Waffles is the shining example of what these people on Reddit want. And I say Waffles as in the corporation Snigwaff. And I know Waffles would be great right now. I made some Waffles a couple days ago too. But no, Snigwaff. They come out of a wormhole. They bring 2 or 3 command destroyers that could jump their gang away if they get in trouble. They bring ships that go really fast and can hit things that can tackle them very easily. Kikimura's, the new AHAC version of the Triglavian ship, has no tracking issues. They just obliterate tackle. So if you try to chase them with tackle, you're going to lose all your tackle, and then they're just going to leave out the wormhole and leave. But you drop 2 or 3 Titans, they're not killing anything, then they're going home. And you see them fight, like, they'll jump in, you'll see a video of them doing this. They'll come in, they'll go tackle a carrier. Now, a solo carrier cannot fight Kikimuras. It can't. The fighters just don't work, they get blown up. And they'll try to kill that carrier, but if more things show up, they just boosh away, look at it objectively. Oh, can I fight that? Can I beat that? Well, if I can't, they go right back to the wormhole, they're gone. If they can, they come back in and fight. So you're seeing that. It's taking Nano to a new level. Yeah, there's skill involved in that. You have to have a pilot you trust to boost you away. You have to have a pilot you trust to do the dictor bubbling. But Eve has never been, because of the way CCP designed it, has never been a game where skill will triumph lots of things. I bring 10 Titans and park them on a gate. You're probably not going to go through that gate very well unless you somehow go around it, right? So I just don't see the argument here that we need to go back to the idea of nano games dominating Eve.
Well,
we need to balance the game
nano
for
games
that.
are fun for the people in them. The problem is that nano games are oppressively unfun for the people having to deal with them. And the balance is almost impossible to properly set because the people in the nano gangs can choose to be as, risk averse as they choose. And if they choose to be highly risk averse, there is almost nothing you can do to properly remove them from your space.
Yeah, we're about to go Cool Kids Only mode, and the question's asked, should one system be able to protect 350 systems? Yes, if you have the ability, with the number of pilots that you have, to project your power to cover your space that you can reach. If you look at Dell, for example, if you're not in range of 1DQ1, you die. We point at you, we laugh at you, we tell you to get back into 1DQ1 range, and then we'll protect you. And it's probably the same in all the other places at Eve and 0-0. If you're not in range of where your alliance lives, you're going to die. So, yeah, those 350 systems being in direct jump range of one system, they should be saved. They should be protected. If there's a 350 first system that's just out of range of that, good luck. You're in no man's land. And it's like, what's that? I'm going to bring a reference here to a lot of the older gamers. If you remember the game Chrono Trigger from back when, in this game, it's an old Super Nintendo game, you can see an overmap of the future, and there's like little habitation pods and then a road that leads to another habitation pod, and outside the habitation pods is no man's land. Nobody goes there because they just die. There's no one living there. But if you're in the little habitation pod, you're protected. You have food, you have water, you're safe. And I think that's the same thing with Eve. if you go outside of these umbrellas in 0-0 that have been popped up, it's no man's land. Either someone's really dumb and doing something they shouldn't be doing in that land and then they die, or there's just no one there. So you have to find that. I think that's what makes 0-0 cool, is that you have that, right?
So, like, what is the
question-
what is the point we're even debating right now, though?
I'm confused. K-Color, what do you got?
Sorry.
Just someone was complaining about umbrellas and how basically, you know, should one system be in range of all these other systems for defense? It's like, if it's in range for defense, it's also in range for offense, right? Should all 30 systems be in range of dreads? Like, flip it around. Like, why would you complain about people using their space to defend it if you wouldn't be able to use it as offense either?
Right. I mean, Jay Mazian points out, it's not like umbrellas are a new thing. Umbrellas have been a thing since Bob lived in Delve. I used to take roaming fleets when I was just a wee little newbie commander into Delve. The whole point was you would enter Delve, spend 30 minutes flying around in circles because it took them 30 minutes to form up. You got your fight, you got slaughtered, and you came home. That's literally the way it works. And that's back in 2009, right? Like, just
All right, we're in Cool Kids Only mode now here, right. So we have a lot more Cool Kids, which is awesome due to apparently the new trend of gifting subs en masse. Right. And so I've noticed that a lot of questions and comments through the course of the show that people have been putting into chat. So people are, as Seto said, are we only going to talk about crabbing today? We actually have some news involving like war shit. So yeah, why don't we move on to some legacy things? And I will start pulling questions from the, fuck, dude, there's like 140 new Cool Kids today. That's pretty awesome. So yeah, welcome to the in crowd.
First things first, and I'm going to bring you a World War II reference here because people have been demanding it all freaking show. The sinking of the Yamato in the Pacific, World War II, it reminds me of this Kimosh kill mill, I think that's how you call it, where you have a ship that's never been sunk in Eve. They got caught in a wormhole with probably the single worst fit on the planet. That people were like, oh, this thing won't die. It's so big and tanky, and it's awesome, and it has NOS, so it's not going to have cap issues. And then it gets blown up with, what the fuck is this fit? Billy, is this a good fit? Is this how you would...
Billy has opinions on this. Billy, you have the floor. Tell us what should we think about this scenario?
Well, I mean, they're using it as like a big shield Balgorn, but like, it's entirely reliant upon, minnows what do they use? Ninazus and shit for reps, but right. They killed all its triage support, so it died, right? I think, honestly, the fit is generally terrible, but all the faction dreads are like not that different from just a normal dread, so it's unsurprising that it died.
Right.
Did we ever find that keep star?
Yeah, that's the next question. We have a link here, and you guys are going to like this. The title of this little bit's called Dude, Where's My Keep Star? This is apparently a broadcast by Billy. Billy, tell us about this one. What happened here?
So, like, 3 months ago, I had, the guy who normally builds keep stars in test for us, who's Base Haver, has been building as a keep star every 2 months for, 2 years. But he's getting a little tired of doing that, and he wanted to take a break, so I was like, all right, well, I still need keep stars. But... so I just contracted a couple dudes to be like, yo, can you go build me some keep stars? And they're like, yeah, sure, no problem. So I just broadcast a test command and got a couple people to start the projects. And then I forgot who it was. So, because it's it takes a while to get the PI, put all the stuff in. And I can't remember who actually I asked to do it. So we didn't pay for them. So it's just, there's a couple keep stars randomly being built and tested. I can't remember who they are.
Yeah, I think that happens. I mean, we have, in the past, we lost an outpost, almost like Pocketland. Back before Citadels, of course, you would drop outpost eggs. And one day, somebody in the Gunstorm finance team was sort of going through hangars and looking around. And it was we had an Amar one, and I think at one point we even had a Glinte office outpost that we had just built the egg for, and we're going to do it, and just sort of lost it somewhere in the galaxy. And we're like, oh shit, we had this from 2 years ago when we were going to do that thing, and then stuff happened, and hey guys, outpost. So I feel that.
Yeah. I mean, I found 50 billion ISK worth of Tech 2 Serb fleet stuff like the other day, and I was like, oh, that's nice. That like you're just like, oh, I bought that fleet like 2 years ago, and it's like, oh, I guess it's still useless. That was kind of the, maybe I can turn it into material or something.
Let's talk about some more stuff here. I mean, Billy, you are the man to talk to about this. Can you give us an update on? I heard through the grapevine earlier today that like Fraternity is like working with PanFam now, or it is going to be moving up there. Can you give us a general update on the Legacy Fraternity War and what the hell is?
All right, so we're into week 10 of the restarted war, I guess you could say. Realistically, we've been going since March. It's been 10 or 11 weeks since I kind of took the reins and started my own push, I guess you could say. We've been nibbling at the wall of Sinojammers, where Fraternity is able to Sinojam and utilize the time zone tank to maintain a really strong defensive position. But day by day, we chip away at the bricks of that wall. We take an IHUB here and IHUB there. We make them go left, we make them go right. We keep pressure on them kind of all the time. We harass their routers, we harass their miners. We just make living where they are really difficult, and the pressure is really starting to how would you say it? We're starting to, it's starting to calcify, I guess you would say the proper way to say it. Like, we're in a position now where I think we've had 4 of their small alliances now who have either broken off or decided that they don't want to be on this front anymore and have moved to cash or outside of Winter Coalition's ownership. So that's 4 small alliances, and one or two of them was actually moderately relevant. Both Vindy and Weekend Warriors were both like decent little groups, but living on the front of a war is not fun. So they left, and there's a couple more that may be on the ropes as well. So now that we've got some of the big bricks down, we have a position where we can always kind of, like, we were at a position where we couldn't even get into their space to a degree at one point. So we had to go protect the Fortizar once, and I think we had to go like 8 jumps through Sinojammers, under the Sinojammer wall to get there. And now we've chipped away enough IHUBs that we're down to about 4 jumps, and hopefully we'll chip a few more, and it'll be down to 2 jumps. And so meanwhile, Fraternity's struggling. It's not fun being on the losing side of a war forever. So they're having difficulty. Their SRP fund is getting lower and lower. They were heavily reliant on their botting income to support both their SRP fund and their alliance in general. And the Blackout has obviously really wiped that away. So we're just
Would you say that they have been? I only just now thought about this because we haven't been fighting FRT, but they had serious like botting problems. There were like allegations of RMT against like their executor a while back. Like, have you? What can you tell us about? Has the Blackout affected FRT more than any other alliances? Have you seen strategically like a huge difference in like fighting the war against these guys before the Blackout, after the Blackout? Maybe you could talk a little bit more about how the Blackout has impacted FRT and your war with them.
So in general, the Blackout has affected the war in 3 ways. First of all, no bots. So all of their, like, as soon as the Blackout hit, like days later, we were noticing the ADMs just falling all over Detroit. And if you look at the Detroit ADM map, like the difference between like a week before the Blackout and like 2 weeks after the Blackout, you can tell how insanely heavy the botting was in Detroit. So all of that, the ADMs fell like a rock, and that was huge for us because it allowed us to actually get the timers in the time zone tank where they were at least like somewhat manageable, like not crazy alarm clocks, but like just shitty alarm clocks. And on top of that, it meant all of their rental income and all their botting income, which is huge for Fraternity. Because if you look at Fraternity Treasury, which is their rental / botting, like it's the way they kind of launder the ISK a little bit. That at the same time just started, well, it no longer received much ISK. So, their main source of income is gone because they're not diversified at all. They have no real rental income. They have no additional income like a trading tower. They have, they just have the money they make from, their botters and their riders. And at the same time, because this was like week 6, I think, the pressure was starting to add up. And it's not fun being an alliance leader when you're in a war and you're losing, right? Like, being an alliance leader when you're winning is hard. Being an alliance leader when you're losing is even harder. So at that time, Norris, who's the leader of Fraternity, decided he was going to go on a vacation and took a break, and there's been no credit card infusions into his alliance since then. And Fraternity at several points has been extremely reliant on his credit card to kind of keep going. So it's been a rough time for them the last couple of weeks, and it's only going to get rougher and rougher.
That's a couple of interesting things about this. And if we run a little over on this, I'm okay, because for some reason I forgot to ask this question just now, and I think it's really fascinating, is that if we see that Fraternity has been so strongly negatively impacted by the blackout, and we believe that that is correlated with the fact that FRT was heavily involved in botting, and we know that from the pie chart of shame, right? Like, so that was the thing that we knew going into this. The interesting thing about the blackout from a certain perspective is it does kind of imply that the rest of the null-sec entities that have not been so affected by the blackout, it kind of shows or indicates, not necessarily proves, but does indicate that the rest of the null-sec alliances were much less bot-oriented than we were all kind of getting accused of being.
Fraternity
right?
was really the only main alliance in the game that supported botting in a non-rental format, right? Like, you guys rent some period basis, I rent Faithablis, like GOTG rents Branch, there's lots in the drone regions and Veil that was being supported through renters. But Fraternity was the only one who kind of like out and out supported it within their main alliance. Because like there's no real way to police renters. It's just like, I rent a space to you and I hope you're a legit alliance. Like, and I've actually been lucky because for the most part, the alliances we have in Faithablis are actually moderately like bot free. We evicted kids with guns a while ago, and they were pretty upset with that. But it's one of those things where Fraternity is the only one where the bot ISK was not really kind of filtered through the rental system, and it's it's definitely hit them much harder than everybody else.
Noisy Gamer points out here, and he, of course, is a subject matter expert in all things involving botting and RMT. And when he pipes up about this kind of stuff, if you guys don't know who he is, we usually stop what we're doing and repeat what he says in chat. But he notes that branch activity ratting has dropped like 90%. One of the things that this is kind of like black on black. This is kind of a blackout thing. It's kind of a crabbing thing, but it also, I think, has strategic implications in null-sec warfare as a whole. Is if, and I think this might be happening, but we need the data from the next MER, right? Like, this is going to be some fascinating shit. But if the blackout kills if it kills renting in EVE, and like renting ceases to be a thing because it's just not viable after the blackout, that would be worth it. I am so totally here for that. Now, of course, right. Goonswarm has the Imperium rents out period basis, stuff like that. We did that originally because we wanted to undercut and destroy the larger renting organizations. And if through all of this, it turns out that most of the renters in the game were bots and the blackout completely ruins things for everyone, so nobody bothers with renting anymore in null-sec, I think that would be fantastic.
Yeah, no, yeah. I certainly agree. I know from us, like, we rent Faithablis as a region in Paragon Sol. Only about 20% of our renters probably are ones that we might lose, because the rest of them are actually just small alliances who can't exist in null-sec without support of bigger groups, right? Like, that's the reality of a lot of renters. There's another couple groups that maybe have issues. I don't know, but we'll see. So it's if the blackout continues and all the bots in EVE are cooked, nothing would make me happier.
Damn straight.
The thing
Let's
that's
throw a conspiracy out real quick.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh boy.
Blackout was implemented because goons started renting.
Well, I mean, there was lots of botting going on a period basis before you guys started renting it, so it's not like you changed them.
Right. But here's an interesting thing, and a lot of people forget this, and it may be a cultural transition that's difficult, but on Serenity, botting's allowed. Okay, Serenity had a whole new, different set of rules where it was kind of just do what's legal in China, and as long as it's legal in China, or at least not illegal in a sense, do it. So botting was okay, RMT was okay. None of this stuff was inherently wrong on Serenity. They didn't police it. So you have these players in Fraternity and other groups that come directly off Serenity that have never played on Tranquility, that don't probably know that that kind of thing is bad. And that's why you see Fraternity taking such a huge hit as an alliance in their income, is because they're all Serenity players. It's not like in the case of Horde or Goons or stuff, you may have people that bot or RMT, they get caught and banned and removed, but as the Alliance as a whole doesn't do it because it's allowed, right? Like, you're seeing that with Fraternity, is that maybe they just haven't transitioned into, hey, we can't do that. This isn't like Serenity. We can't do that here, and now they're starting to notice the problem with that.
I mean, that makes sense. They could have a cultural adaptation,
right.
Especially if the game changes. It helps if your leader is around for that, because if their leader has vanished during a time of crisis, then everything is rudderless. Villy, are you or your people seeing any signs of adaptation from FRT so far, or has it primarily just been a slow, extended collapse?
It's a very slow, very extended collapse. Like,
yeah.
they're like the only people of real relevance in Fraternity's leadership are Elo Knight and Norris, right? And
you cut out. I think his headset died.
He might have yanked it out of his computer.
Here's one.
That was the end of his statement.
Yeah, this is coming from sources that I got just this morning and yesterday. All of Fraternity's work roles are starting to get spotted in and scattered throughout the umbrella that is PLNC Horde. So you're starting to see them appear in mass in the drones. So they're transferring their money systems.
We might have lost.
Yeah, sorry, my microphone just died. It's on like low battery. I didn't recharge it before the show, so it's like apparently talking
just
a lot.
This audio?
No, I mean, I'm not seeing the stream advancing here on my other screen here.
We're still live.
I've lost net or yep, there we go.
Yeah, OBS still live. Hold on, wait. Thanks, Villy. Villy, I just brought
So
this
what
up.
I was saying,
Sorry. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Is the only people of real relevance in Fraternity are Elo Knight and Norris. And Norris is gone, and we successfully burned Elo Knight. Well, Elo Knight burned himself out in, 7 or 8 weeks. And after that, it's been, it's pretty obvious he's trying to find the will to play again. But, especially when there's only one person to go after, it's pretty easy to put the pressure on them and keep them from getting, the fun fights, I guess you could say. So, and neither of them are what you would call, highly innovative geniuses in terms of EVE gameplay at the strategic level. So, I mean, Elo Knight's a great FC, and he's good at the smaller and medium gang stuff. But at this scale, he's just, the kind of guy who shows up and he knows how to properly turn the wheel, I guess you could say.
This question was just brought up, or it's not a question, it's more a statement. Are you seeing this, Villy? I was told yesterday that a lot of the Fraternity work roles and supers are starting, the ones that spend time making money are starting to appear in the drones. Are you seeing them shift their ratting and mining off into the drones more and more, or is it just they're not?
Oh yeah,
doing
sorry.
anything?
This was one of my updates from a week or two ago. So Fraternity moved the majority of their work rules to the drone regions because they didn't like, ratting and living next to us. So all of their work rules are in the drone regions. Only the select few who have the proper amount of participation link clicks are allowed to actually use them in the drone regions. And as you can imagine, that doesn't go over well at the moment. They're still doing some super ratting, and apparently they're going to be protected by the pandemic umbrella, but I have not seen that materialize just yet.
Yeah,
that sort of makes sense. I was kind of anticipating that as FRT continues to lose, it would be natural for them to have a strategic realignment around the newly drone region based PL NC dot focus up there. So that sort of.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where it goes. And then the next question I have for Villy here before we go is there was a couple of battles real quick that were shared to me by our wonderful man Cedow here. He wanted to link me some stuff. If you could tell us about them as we got 3 real quick, and then we'll call it a day. First one is a fight that happened over the XIX TP7 iHub defense. So we got a link here. How'd that go?
Obviously said I'll link that one to you because that was him kicking ass. That was just a mutant on mutant fight. Fraternity's terrible at, actually winning fights unless it's Elo Knight there. So they took a fight versus Seto. Mutant numbers were roughly equal, and he just out FC'd them and out, especially with mutants. If one FC is good and one FC is bad. There's very few comps in the game where it will shine more, I guess you could say.
Now, is this the fight?
The speed is very high, so if
Yeah.
you start screwing up your target calling, you might lose 5 or 6 mutants at the speed. It just takes you to get your reps and your alpha cycle sorted again. So
I have a question, Willie.
yeah.
What is it like to outperform Olympic athletes?
That's an old meme. Checks out though. But I don't know. We'll see. The Army of Mangoes guys, AOM, have some really interesting FCs, and I'm really kind of excited to work with them in the future because they're the real kind of powerhouse that was on Serenity, and I've had some chats with their FCs, and I'm super duper excited to kind of see what they can do because they are the ones that in theory had those kind of Olympic athlete FCs, and we'll see if they're just as good as they were chatted up to be. But certainly Norris doesn't have them, so we'll see.
For those that are confused for a second, Army of Mango are the guys that transitioned from Serenity, that 1,000-man group that had a big meeting. I forget their name on Serenity at the moment. It's off the top of my head, but that's the one we've been talking about for months. That big migration of Serenity players that came to come after Fraternity. They
currently live in Omist. Yeah.
Right. And then is that the fight? Now we had a video for this. Let me see if I can grab it here real quick. And look at chat. We had a video for this. I believe this is the fight where you guys were killing mutants so fast that the question came up: why aren't you splitting your guns? Because there was like boom, 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 boom. Like it looked like a slaughter almost. Why is it that the guns weren't split in that case?
We never split guns. Splitting guns is a trap.
Really?
Now that's something our enemies are trying to get us to do. If a cast member splits his guns, he loses all reimbursement automatically. So.
Ooh. Because the reason I asked this is because it looks like you're killing them so fast at that point.
Right, but the thing is, like, even a single one of them catches reps, you will lose 3, 4, 5 kills worth of.
Yeah, I'd rather overkill rather than splitting guns. Like, I mean, getting goons to split guns has historically been like a huge pain in the ass. Like, we do it when we get these really big fleet fights, but like in a situation where you're already winning a war, like in Villy's scenario, like if you're probably going to be winning anyway, there's no such thing as too much overkill.
Right.
If you're already on the win.
This is like, I would love to be able to kill like 10 mutants more, but like if you broadcast too fast, all of a sudden they start catching reps, they start hitting ADCs, and it looks perfect right there. It looks like, we're going too slow, but in reality, if we go any quicker, then we get no kills, right? So it's a perfect balance that, obviously Seto was hitting really well in that fight.
Now this next one's pretty an interesting story, and this will probably be our one here. This is the battle for the I9G iHub. Can you tell us what happened here? The Reddit posts were really hilarious, and I liked your AAR here. So you tell us what happened in this fight.
So it wasn't my AAR because I never wrote one for that fight, and this wasn't actually over the I9 iHub. It was over one of the nearby ones.
Oh, you wrote it on it was a Reddit post from you. Sorry, that's why I was wondering.
It was.
Yeah, you even Vasily is not you. I thought that was Villy. God, I'm dumb. Sorry. Move on. Okay. Well, I'm used to you writing these, so sorry. I just what's the word for that?
Okay, so
yeah, go ahead.
It was early morning. They had just done like 8 hours of iHub saves, so this was like hour number 9 or 10. We did a flash forum CTA. They did not really flash forum. Like 30 minutes before they started pinging about it, so we started pinging at that point. We knew we were forming for it all night, but we weren't going to let them know that was the one we were going to go after. We formed 250-man mutant fleet. They formed 250-man eagle fleet. We had probably 30, 40 more harpy fleet or whatever to do the nodes. And Ron was a real hero. Ron USMC from Test. He's one of the streamer dudes. Did a real hero in leading that Intosis fleet and getting the iHub timer 1 while the battle was underway. But we had some struggles getting in. Initiative showed up nearby with a bomber fleet and came into system, and they were sitting on a node, and we hadn't directly engaged the Eagle fleet yet with the Munins at that point. Eagles are actually a little better than Munins at the 250 versus 250 stage with no other factors in play, but if you throw in things like bombers or caps or whatever, Eagles are generally worse. So anyways, Initiative was on one of the nodes. Fraternity warps directly to the node at 0, lands at the edge of a bubble. Initiative is 30 kilometers away. ... initiative fires too many bombs right away. It doesn't kill them all, but they get them all to like 10% shield. And then the fight starts, and you know, the fight is going poorly for Fraternity, so they drop some triage, and we're like, okay, whatever, you can have some triage. And then they drop like 20 carriers, so I gate in 20 dreads to kill their 20 carriers, and then they're like, you can't do that to us. So they cycle the jammer to dread bomb my dreads, and this is in direct range of our staging system, so I'm like, ... Sino jammers down, supers log in, all the supers log in, all of their stuff dies within the cycle of a single Sino jammer. And that was pretty much the fight.
Yeah. We saw the fight from a video perspective of Pando, the FC for a he's been streaming some of these fights recently on Twitch, and we got to see that.
He was actually like really responsible for that fight more than anybody. Like when Fraternity warped into the bomb, like I've seen the video of like from a Fraternity member's side, like from one of our spy dudes, and he's like, they warp in they're at the edge of the bubble, and like the initiative fleet is already starting to fire bombs as they're landing, and I'm like, oh god, they're all fucking gonna die. And it's just like they just didn't fire like that last wave to like truly wipe them out. It would have been beautiful if they had, but like I don't know if they didn't have void bombs either or what, but yeah, it was really close. And then the fight starts, and Fraternity just decides that they can't afford to lose again, which is something they do quite often, where they're like, instead of kind of being like, take our lumps, we fucked up, warp away, dock up, you win the timer, etc. They double down, and they double down, and they double down. And
they're basically like the most, like, of any alliance that I've seen in Null-sec, Fraternity really does the sunk cost fallacy thing like the worst out of. Like they throw good ships after bad in losing engagements.
I don't even think
like some sort of weird cultural honor thing. I don't understand.
I don't even know if that's an Elo thing too, because like Elo would know that, like it's time to get out. Right?
If you beat Elo in a fleet fight, Elo will be back there within an hour later with like double the fleet size. Be like, okay, let's go again. I can win this time. I can do it. It's just like he's ready to go for round 2, and like then you could dunk him again, and he'll be back 2 hours later. He's like, I'm gonna go. Okay, I'm ready at this time. Like this is the real fight now. But like it doesn't always work out that way, obviously, and. I mean, usually Elo's pretty good, so that he doesn't have to do that. But we've caught him a lot of times in that, in his double down mortality as well. So
that makes sense. All right, well, it is 10 minutes over, so we're going to go ahead and call it a day for today. I want to thank everybody for joining us and our guests, Villy and yeah, thanks guys for coming, and thank you again so much for our the people who are, some of whom were anonymous, for throwing so many subs. At everyone, and the very biggest one, of course, was not anonymous at all. 100 subs. My
yes,
fucking
thank
God,
you,
that was
sir.
Insane.
That was absolutely insane.
That was good shit.
Yeah. So we'll see you guys next Saturday. We'll see what happens next Saturday. Speaking of next Saturday, I'm expecting the economic report for July to be out sometime this week. That will be a big indicator of how things are
blackout and what happened. Yeah,
the blackout. Very interesting.
When did the blackout start, date wise?
10th of July, and before that was the drifters for 2 weeks. So pretty much all of July has had some kind of thing going on. So it'll be interesting to see that.
All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for coming, and we will reconvene next week. See you then.
See ya.
You are about to receive messages that may be harmful to your mental state. Your sense of reality will be questioned. Your view on things will be altered. You are now part of the meta. The meta controls everything. The meta determines what will and will not happen. You are watching The Meta Show.